Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Derek Cole. I am 38 years old. And for most of my adult life, I truly believe that if you worked hard, were loyal, and took care of your family, life would eventually make sense. I grew up in a black middle-class neighborhood on the west side of Charlotte, North Carolina, the son of a postal worker and a school secretary. I built a company from nothing, married the woman I thought I would grow old with, and we had a daughter, Naomi, who quickly became the center of my world. 6 months ago, all of that was shattered in a single evening that started with what I thought would be a simple surprise for my family. It was a Friday in late spring, one of those clear Carolina afternoons where the sky looked painted and the air carried just enough warmth to feel hopeful. I decided to leave work early. I told my assistant I needed to handle something at home and walked out of the office at about 2:30. The plan was simple: pick up takeout from LaToya's favorite soul food place near Uptown, surprise her and Naomi, and maybe in the evening with a movie night on the couch. We had not had a quiet family evening in weeks, and I convinced myself that this little gesture might help us reconnect. By 3 in the afternoon, I turned into our subdivision, admiring the familiar row of brick front houses and neatly cut lawns. Ours sat halfway down the block, an easy-to-spot two-story with a maple tree out front that Naomi and I had planted when she was 4. As I pulled into the driveway, the first thing I noticed was that there were more cars there than usual. LaToya's silver sedan was in its usual spot, but next to it was a black pickup truck I recognized immediately. It belonged to my former business partner, Reggie Holt. We had not spoken in months since we formally dissolved our partnership at Cole Strategic Solutions, Limited Liability Company. Behind his truck were 2 other cars I did not recognize, both late-model sedans with tinted windows. My stomach tightened. I sat in my car for a moment, the takeout containers cooling in the passenger seat, listening to the distant hum of lawnmowers and the muffled sounds of voices drifting from inside the house. Friday afternoons at home were usually quiet. Naomi might be watching a show or coloring at the dining table. LaToya might be on a work call or prepping something for dinner. But what I heard as I cut the engine was not the easy murmur of ordinary life. It sounded like a meeting. I walked up to the front door, keys in one hand and the paper bag of food in the other. As soon as I opened the door, the smell of collard greens and fried chicken mixed with perfume and something sharp, paper, toner, anxiety. Voices were coming from the living room and dining area, low and serious. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me, taking in the scene. LaToya was sitting at the dining table, back straight, expression composed in a way I had seen her use in professional settings, not at home. She looked like she owned the world and had already decided what part of it belonged to her. Next to her, sitting far too comfortably close for any former business associate, was Reggie. Across from them sat 2 people in dark suits, a woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes and a man with a neatly trimmed beard and a tablet open in front of him. Papers were spread out over the table in neat stacks, some clipped, some highlighted. Filling the rest of the living room were LaToya's parents, Leon and Carol Jackson, both dressed like they were attending a serious church meeting, and her younger siblings. Her sister Aisha sat on the arm of the sofa, arms folded, expression wary. Her brother Troy leaned against the wall near the window, hands in his pockets, trying to look calm, but failing. And on the couch, with her knees pulled up to her chest, was my 8-year-old daughter, Naomi. Her cheeks were wet with tears, and she clutched her favorite stuffed lion to her chest. When she saw me, relief and fear flickered across her face in a way that grabbed my heart and squeezed. "Daddy," Naomi whispered, her voice cracking, but before she could say more, LaToya spoke. "Perfect timing," LaToya said, and there was no surprise at all in her voice. Not even a hint. She had known exactly when I would walk in, or she had at least planned for the possibility. Her tone was cool, almost mechanical. "We have been waiting for you." I set the bag of food on the kitchen counter and placed my keys beside it, my eyes scanning the faces in the room. Naomi kept wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Reggie could not quite look at me, his gaze skating over my face and landing somewhere near my shoulder. The suited woman and man watched me with professionally neutral expressions. Leon looked grim, his jaw clenched. Carol's eyes were full of something between discomfort and determination. Aisha glanced from Latoya to me, baffled. Troy shifted his weight, clearly uneasy. Waiting for me? I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm as I stepped closer to the table. For what exactly? Reggie finally looked up at me, but the man I had joked with every day for almost a decade at the office was gone. In his place was someone tight and nervous, the corners of his mouth pulled down in a frown he could not control. He opened his mouth and then closed it again. The woman in the gray suit cleared her throat. "Mr. Cole," she said, "my name is Attorney Michelle Rhodes from Rhodes and Ellis Law Group. This is my colleague, Attorney Brian Ellis. We represent your wife in these divorce proceedings." The words divorce proceedings rolled into the quiet of the house like smoke filling a room, thin at first and then thick enough to choke you. Naomi sniffled louder. Carol looked down at her hands. Leon's eyes hardened. Latoya did not flinch. Latoya leaned forward and slid a thick stack of documents across the table toward where I stood. Her nails were manicured in a dark red that looked almost black under the overhead light. "Sign these," she said. Her voice remained flat, almost bored. "You are giving me the company. Full ownership transfer. Reggie and I will be running it together." I'll let the words sink in as I picked up the top sheet. The heading read, "Assignment and Transfer of Ownership, Cole Strategic Solutions, Limited Liability Company." My company's name. The company I had built in a tiny rented office in downtown Charlotte with one used desk and a second-hand printer. The company that now handled several multi-million-dollar consulting contracts for regional logistics and tech firms. I looked back up at Latoya. She was not crying. She was not angry. She was not even sad. This moment, for her, was not about the end of marriage. It was about an acquisition. The company, I repeated slowly, the one we built together. The one I stayed up until 4 a.m. working on when you were asleep. The one that has been keeping this family comfortable for the last 6 years. Latoya's lips twisted in a faint smile that did not reach her eyes. "The one you've been running into the ground," she replied. "Reggie has been telling me about your terrible decisions. You have been sabotaging deals, Derek, playing favorites, wasting opportunities. This company needs competent leadership if it is going to survive." I glanced at Reggie. He shifted in his chair but still could not hold my gaze. His hand rested on a leather folder, fingers tapping a restless rhythm on the edge. Naomi's soft sobbing continued from the couch, worming its way into every corner of my awareness. "And if I do not sign?" I asked, turning my attention to the male attorney. Attorney Ellis folded his hands on the table. His voice was calm, practiced. "Then this becomes a very long, very expensive court battle that will drain whatever value the company has left," he said. "Your retirement savings, your daughter's college fund, any property you own, all of it will end up tied up in litigation. We're trying to avoid that outcome and resolve this as quickly and efficiently as possible." Leon nodded, his face tight. "Just sign the papers, son," he said. "It is better this way. No need to drag this out and destroy the family in the process." I walked over to the table, my steps slow and deliberate. I could feel everyone watching me. The attorneys looked confident that they had control of the situation. Latoya's family looked uncomfortable but aligned. Reggie looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Naomi's eyes followed my every move. A pen lay on the table, already uncapped and set at the top of the signature page, as if they had rehearsed this moment over and over until they were sure of exactly where I would stand. I picked it up and flipped through the pages. "This gives her everything?" I asked, my voice quiet. I directed the question to the attorneys. "Full ownership transfer of Cole Strategic Solutions, Limited Liability Company." "Yes," Attorney Rhodes confirmed. "Upon your signature, your wife will become sole owner and managing member effective immediately. You will have no remaining interest in the company." Latoya leaned back in her chair, already smiling faintly as if the outcome were assured. Reggie glanced at her, then at me, then back down at his phone, which buzzed once on the table before he silenced it. I could almost see the numbers running in his head, the money he thought they were about to control. "All right," I said, and I signed. I signed my name on every line they pointed to. I initialed where they asked me to initial. I did not argue. I did not negotiate. I did not even ask for time to review the documents with my own attorney, even though I saw the brief flash of surprise in Attorney Rhodes' eyes when I did not object. With each stroke of the pen, the room grew quieter, until the only sound were the scratch of ink on paper and Naomi's quiet crying. When I finished, I set the pen down carefully, as if I were laying down a piece of delicate glass. LaToya's smile widened into something more open, almost triumphant. "Finally," she said, "some common sense." But I felt my own mouth curving upward now, and it was not a polite smile. Reggie noticed it first. His fingers stopped tapping. "Something funny?" Reggie asked, his voice strained. For a second, there was a flicker of the old Reggie, the one who would ask that question before a punchline or a prank. But this time, there was no camaraderie behind it, only unease. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, folding my arms, and looked around at the room, full of people who believed they had just executed the perfect plan. "Not funny exactly," I said. "Just interesting timing." That was when Reggie's phone started ringing again. The screen lit up on the table, the ringtone cutting through the heavy silence. Reggie frowned and picked it up. "I need to take this," he muttered. LaToya shot him a sharp look. "It can wait, Reggie," she said. "We are in the middle of something important." "It is Kenneth from Meridian Industries," Reggie replied, lowering his voice, but not enough to keep me from hearing. "This might be about that proposal I sent him. It could be a big move for us." I watched him carefully. Meridian Industries. I knew the name intimately. Naomi sniffled again, rubbing her eyes. Aisha shifted on the arm of the sofa, looking from Reggie to me with increasing concern. "Answer properly," LaToya told Reggie. "We are almost done here. Just do not mess this up." Reggie nodded and stepped a half pace away from the table, still within our view, but trying to carve out a bubble of privacy that did not exist. He flushed the call to his ear. "Hello, this is Reggie Holt." His voice was confident at first, the way it always was when he believed he was managing an opportunity. But as whoever was on the other end continued speaking, the confidence drained from his face like someone slowly pulling the color out of a photograph. His eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly. "What do you mean sold?" Reggie asked. His voice climbed a register. "Sold to who?" The room focused on him, as if he were suddenly the main character in a film. LaToya's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion. The attorneys exchanged a quick, sharp look. Leon straightened in his chair. Carol clutched her purse tighter. Troy took a step away from the wall. Aisha stared at Reggie with her eyebrows drawn together. "When?" Reggie asked. "This morning." His hand tightened around the phone. "The entire company." "For how much?" He listened, and the silence in the room stretched until it felt like a physical weight. Then he spoke again, voice cracking on the last word. $10 million? $10 million. LaToya shot up from her chair, so quickly that it scraped against the hardwood floor. $10 million what?" she demanded. "Reggie, what is going on?" Reggie lowered the phone slowly, his eyes locked on me, as if he had just seen a ghost. His hands were shaking so badly, he had to clutch the device with both of them. "That was Kenneth from Meridian Industries," he said quietly. "They just took ownership of Cole Strategic Solutions. They bought it this morning for $10 million. For a second, no one moved. Then the room erupted. "That is not possible," LaToya shouted. "He just signed the papers. I own the company now." Attorney Rhodes was already flipping through the documents with a speed that told me she understood exactly what this meant. "These ownership transfer documents are dated today," she said, "filed to be effective upon signing. But if the sale happened earlier this morning—" "The sale happened at 8 in the morning," I said calmly. "About 7 hours before this little meeting you organized here." I looked at Reggie. Kenneth is very thorough. He probably mentioned the timestamp on the closing documents. Reggie stared at me. His shoulders slumped as the realization settled in. "You sold our company," he said. "You actually sold it." "My company," I corrected. "I was still the sole owner this morning when I signed the sale agreement. You stopped being my partner 3 months ago. You remember, Reggie, the day you signed the partnership dissolution paperwork? The same week you decided that my wife was more interesting than the business we built together." The room went dead silent again. LaToya's face moved through a rapid sequence of emotions. Confusion, anger, disbelief, and finally something close to panic. "You cannot do this," LaToya said. "We had a plan. Reggie said the company was worth at least $15 million. We were going to expand, hire more people, open a second office in Atlanta. You were throwing everything away." "Reggie said a lot of things," I replied. "But Reggie has not actually been involved in the operations that mattered for months. He has been too busy planning this little ambush with you." Naomi shifted on the couch, hugging her stuffed lion tighter. I could feel her eyes on me, trying to understand a world of adult betrayal that no 8-year-old should have to understand. Attorney Ellis cleared his throat. Sir, if you sold the company this morning, then these ownership transfer documents are legally meaningless, he said. You cannot transfer ownership of an asset that you no longer possess. Exactly, I said. You cannot transfer ownership of something that is not yours anymore. Cole Strategic Solutions still exists, but it belongs to Meridian Industries now. They bought all assets, all client contracts, all intellectual property, the entire operation. Clean slate. I kept nothing but the consulting contract they offered me and the money from the sale. Aisha spoke up from the sofa, her voice tentative. Wait, she said. So there is no company for Latoya to take over? Nothing at all. You cannot just walk into an office and pretend to run it if it belongs to someone else, right? Oh, there is a company, I said. It is just that Meridian owns it now. They have already met with the senior staff. They offer positions to everyone who wanted to stay. Most of them said yes. Funny thing about loyalty, it tends to follow the person who actually signs the paychecks. Reggie finally found his voice again, raw around the edges. The employees, he said. What happens to our people? You did not even tell them I was leaving. They trusted us, Derek. They trusted me. I corrected. And I made sure Meridian would take good care of them. They will be supervised by experienced leadership, not by someone who spends his weekends copying confidential files on a flash drives for his side plans. Latoya began pacing, heels clicking sharply against the floor. This is insane, she said. You are destroying everything we built. I looked at her directly for the first time since I'd walked into the room, meeting her eyes so she could see that I was not backing down. No, I said. I am protecting what I built from people who wanted to steal it. Attorney Rhodes and Attorney Ellis began packing their briefcases, clearly recognizing that the foundation of their strategy had just crumbled. Latoya's family shifted, murmuring among themselves. Leon rubbed his temple. Carol whispered something to Aisha. Troy glanced toward the door like he was calculating how quickly he could exit without drawing attention. Reggie, however, remained frozen, staring at me as if he were trying to replay the last 3 months of his life and find the moment it had all gone wrong. You planned this, he said slowly. You knew we were going to do this today. I shrugged. I had a pretty good idea, I said. You two are not as subtle as you think you are. How long? Latoya demanded. She stopped pacing and faced me head on. How long have you known? I glanced at Naomi. She had stopped crying and was now watching everything with wide, alert eyes. She deserved the truth, even if it hurt. About 3 months, I said. Around the time Reggie here started working late every Tuesday and Thursday, which just happened to be the same days you started your new book club that never involved any actual books. 3 months earlier, I had been at the office late, trying to salvage a complicated logistics contract. I realized I had left my laptop charger at home. It was after 8 in the evening, but Naomi's bedtime was not until 9, and I figured I could slip in, grab the charger, kiss her goodnight, and go back. As I turned onto our street, I saw Reggie's black pickup truck in my driveway. Something in me went cold. Instead of pulling into the drive, I parked 3 houses down, under a tree near the corner. I turned off the engine and sat there for a moment, watching my own house like it belonged to someone else. I walked back on the sidewalk, staying in the shadows. Through the front window, I could see our living room. Latoya and Reggie were on the couch. There was no mistaking what was happening. The way his hand moved over her shoulder, the way she leaned into him, the way their mouths met, the easy intimacy of 2 people who had done this more than once. I did not storm in. I did not pound on the door or shout or throw punches. Instead, I stood there for exactly 2 minutes, watching my life implode in the yellow-orange light spilling from the window. Then I turned around, walked back to my car, and drove to the office. I spent the rest of that night going through our business records. I logged into our company servers and pulled every access log I could find. Reggie had been sloppy. There were copies of client files saved to his personal user folders, emails forwarded from his company account to his personal address, meeting notes labeled as vendor discussions that were clearly conversations with competitors. For every late night he had claimed to be working on proposals, there was a trail of activity that showed what he was really doing. By morning, I knew exactly what they were planning. The path was obvious once you saw it laid out. Step 1. Fracture my relationships with key clients by quietly undermining my decisions. Step 2. Paint me as an incompetent leader who is putting the company at risk. Step 3. Push for a restructuring in which I would be marginalized or bought out for a fraction of the company's value, while Reggie and LaToya stepped in as the responsible leadership team. At 8 in the morning that next day, I called my business attorney, Samuel Price. He had helped me form Cole Strategic Solutions years earlier, and he knew both the company and me very well. Samuel, I said when he picked up, hypothetically speaking, what happens if I want to sell the company? As sole owner, you have every right to sell, Samuel replied. Is Reggie buying you out? I thought he still held partnership shares. Not exactly, I said. I explained that I wanted to dissolve the partnership first, legally and cleanly, and then explore acquisition offers. Samuel was quiet for a long moment, listening. Has something happened? He asked finally. A few things, I replied. But for now, I just need to know if it is possible. Can we set up a meeting to go over my options? That afternoon, I sat in Samuel's office in a mid-rise building in downtown Charlotte, looking out at the city I had come to love. Samuel, a black attorney in his mid-40s with a careful manner and sharp mind, listened as I laid out what I had seen and what I had discovered in the logs. He did not interrupt often, but when he did, his questions were precise. You were telling me you have 3 months' worth of access logs showing Reggie pulling confidential client information without authorization? Samuel asked, tapping a pen lightly against a legal pad. Yes, I said, and that he has been meeting with our competitors under false pretenses. I have calendar entries, email trails, even security camera footage from the building lobby. Samuel nodded slowly. You understand that if this is as bad as it sounds, he is exposed to more than just a civil dispute, he said. There could be licensing issues, potential criminal charges, depending on what he has done with that information. I understand, I said. I also understand that my wife, who has never cared about vendor contracts or quarterly reports in the past, suddenly wants to know our biggest clients, our profit margins, when major contracts come up for renewal. They're planning something. I'm not going to wait for them to move first. Over the next week, I documented everything. I copied server logs, email exports, and system access reports. I did not alter them. I simply preserved them. I took notes on dates, times, and discrepancies. I watched Reggie act as if nothing were wrong at the office. I watched LaToya come home late from her book club, smelling like his cologne. Each lie hardened something inside me, but I stayed calm. When I was ready, Samuel reached out to Meridian Industries, a large regional firm that had been sniffing around smaller consulting companies like mine for the past 2 years. They had approached me once before at a conference in Atlanta about a potential acquisition, but at the time I was not interested. This time, I told Samuel to set up a meeting. 2 executives from Meridian, including an acquisitions manager named Kenneth Blake, ultimately sat across from me in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows. Kenneth, a tall black man with a measured tone and a reputation for turning small firms into profitable divisions, listened as I described the company's position. I did not mention the affair. I did not need to. I focused on the numbers, the contracts, the potential for growth. We are prepared to make an immediate offer, Kenneth said after reviewing the financials. $10 million for full acquisition, assets, contracts, and intellectual property. We would also like to extend a 6-month consulting contract to you, Derek, to ease the transition. After that, we could discuss a permanent role if we're satisfied with the fit. I need 3 months, I told him. I have some partnership issues to clean up first. Kenneth exchanged a look with the other executive and then nodded. 3 months, he said. In that time, we will draft the agreements and prepare for due diligence. Once your internal matters are resolved, we can move quickly. Those 3 months were the longest of my life. I watched LaToya and Reggie get careless. They began meeting at a coffee shop a few blocks from my office, always sitting at the same back table like it made them invisible. Reggie stayed late at the office more often, copying files he assumed I would never miss. LaToya began talking more openly about redecorating the house. New furniture, a renovated kitchen, trips Naomi and I had never discussed, but she now spoke of as if they were inevitable. Every time LaToya asked me a pointed question about a client or our revenue, I answered just enough to keep her convinced that I was unaware of what she was doing. I played the role of the stressed business owner, exhausted and distracted. I complained about Reggie's unreliability while she rubbed my shoulders in the kitchen and told me everything would be all right. The irony would have been funny if it were not so devastating. The hardest part was Naomi. She was perceptive, too perceptive for her age. She noticed when LaToya came home late more often. She heard whispers behind closed doors. She saw the tension in my shoulders. "Are you and Mommy mad at each other?" she asked me one night while I tucked her into bed. "We are having some grown-up disagreements," I said carefully. "But I promise you this. I will always be here for you. You are not the problem. You are never the problem." 2 weeks before the Friday afternoon, when everything finally came to a head, Reggie made his final mistake. He tried to access our main client database over the weekend from his home. I had been monitoring his account closely. The moment he logged in from an unauthorized device, my phone buzzed with an alert. He stayed online for over an hour, pulling contract files, rate sheets, and proprietary process documents. By the time he logged off, I had enough to bury his career. That Monday morning, I called Samuel again. "I am ready to sell," I said. "Can we close this week?" "That is fast," Samuel replied. "What about Reggie?" "Reggie is no longer a factor," I said. "I have the dissolution documents drafted and ready. All he has to do is sign. He will not realize what he has given up until it is too late." Samuel handled everything. Meridian was thrilled to accelerate the timeline. We moved through the due diligence process with cold efficiency. By Friday morning, the same Friday, I came home early with takeout. The sale documents were signed at 8 in the morning. $10 million, minus taxes and Samuel's fees, landed in a business account that only I controlled. Meridian took immediate ownership of Cole Strategic Solutions. The employees were informed in a well-organized meeting. I was given a consultant badge and a new email address. Standing in my own living room that afternoon, watching Reggie realize what had happened, I felt something I had not felt in months. Peace. Not triumph. Not exactly. Just a sense of balance being restored. "You have been planning this for 3 months," LaToya said now, her voice barely above a whisper. "Actually," I replied, "you have been planning it for 3 months. I just made sure I was 3 moves ahead." Reggie looked down at his phone again, which was lighting up with calls and messages. "Our clients are going to panic," he said. "They are going to want to know what is happening to their projects." "Tell them to call Meridian," I said. "They are in good hands." "And tell them the truth, Reggie. Tell them their former account manager tried to steal the company and failed." The room grew quieter. LaToya's family shifted again, no longer sure where to stand. Carol whispered to Leon, "This is not what she told us." Leon pressed his lips together, his eyes moving from LaToya to me with growing unease. I walked over to the couch where Naomi sat. I crouched in front of her and smoothed a curl away from her forehead. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "why do you not go to your room and play for a while? The adults need to finish talking." Naomi looked at me, then at LaToya, then back at me. "Are you coming up later?" she asked. "Always," I said. "I will be up before bedtime. I promise." She nodded, slid off the couch, and headed upstairs. I knew my daughter well enough to know that she would sit at the top step, just out of sight, listening. She was smart. She got that from me. Once she was gone, I turned back to the people who had expected today to be their payday. "Now that Naomi is out of earshot," I said, "let us talk about the money." LaToya straightened, her eyes sharpening again. "The $10 million, she said. "Half of that is mine. Community property. You sold a marital asset. I am entitled to 50%. I almost laughed, but I kept my tone steady. "You think I'm just going to hand you $5 million after what you try to pull here?" I asked. Reggie shifted in his chair. "Look," he said, trying to sound reasonable. "Maybe we can work something out. Split the proceeds. Everybody goes their separate way. No one has to lose everything." "Reggie," I said, "you are not entitled to anything. You stopped being my business partner the day you started sleeping with my wife. Do you remember that partnership dissolution you signed 3 months ago? The one I told you was just a temporary restructuring to protect us during a slow quarter." His face flushed a deep red. "That was supposed to be temporary," Reggie said. "You said we would revisit the structure after we landed the Harbor Point Logistics contract." "No," I replied. "That was permanent. I told you we would revisit it because I knew you would not sign otherwise. The moment you signed, you legally relinquished all ownership interest in Cole Strategic Solutions. I became the sole proprietor. That is why I could sell the company this morning without you. I took out my phone and opened a folder labeled Evidence. I turned the screen so they could see the list of files, access logs, email exports, screenshots, scanned documents. 3 months of documented fraud. Reggie, I said. Unauthorized access to client files, copying confidential information to personal devices, meeting with competitors while claiming vendor meetings. It is all here. The color drained from Reggie's face again. He looked, for the first time, truly afraid. I shifted my gaze to LaToya. And you, I said. Did you really think I would not notice you suddenly quizzing me about contract values, renewal dates, and profit margins? You never cared about those details before. But suddenly you wanted to know exactly how much Harbor Point Logistics was paying us, and when their agreement expired. Aisha shook her head slowly. I told you this was a bad idea, she said to LaToya. I told you just ask for a divorce like a normal person. Shut up, Aisha, LaToya snapped. This is none of your business. Actually, Aisha replied, drawing herself up, it became my business when you asked me to come here as a witness to whatever this is. You wanted us to see him sign his life away. You want an audience. Well, you got one. Leon stepped closer, his voice rough. Is it true? He asked LaToya. Are you really having an affair with this man? He jerked his head in Reggie's direction. LaToya hesitated for a fraction of a second, then lifted her chin. It is complicated, she said. Derek checked out of this marriage a long time ago. Someone had to be there for me. Complicated, I repeated. You spent 3 months planning to steal my company. There is nothing complicated about that. Carol put a hand to her chest. LaToya, she said quietly, you told us Derek was reckless with the business. You said Reggie was the competent one, that he was saving the company. You did not tell us you were involved with him. LaToya's jaw tightened. You are all focusing on the wrong thing, she said. Derek sold our company behind my back. He betrayed this family. No, I said. I protected this family, just not in the way you wanted. Here is what is going to happen with the money. The $10 million is already secured in an account that only I control. But I am not completely heartless. LaToya's eyes lit briefly with hope. So you agree that I should receive half? She asked. Our daughter's college fund, I continued, gets $2 million. I have already had Samuel set up an irrevocable trust in Naomi's name. She will be taken care of through college and beyond, no matter what either of us does. What about me? LaToya demanded. I gave you years of my life. I carried your child. I supported you while you built that company. You owe me more than this. You will get exactly what you brought into this marriage, I replied, which, if I remember correctly, was about $15,000 in student debt and a 10-year-old Honda with a cracked windshield. That is not fair, she said. I helped build that company. No, I said. You helped destroy my trust. There is a difference. Reggie looked at his phone again, eyes darting across the screen. This is going to ruin me, he said. I put everything into the expansion plans. I was counting on that equity. What expansion plans? I asked. The ones where you were going to use my client relationships and confidential data to start a competing firm with LaToya. I have seen the emails, Reggie. You were not planning to grow Cole Strategic Solutions. You were planning to replace it. His silence was answer enough. Troy, who had been quiet until now, shook his head slowly. This is unbelievable, he muttered. LaToya, what did you think was going to happen? Leon cleared his throat. Look, son, he said to me, maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. Can we sit down and work this out like adults? There must be a way to resolve this without destroying everyone. We could have worked it out, I said. 3 months ago, when your daughter decided to commit adultery with my business partner instead of asking for a divorce. But that moment passed. This is where we are now. LaToya's voice took on a desperate edge. What if we do not contest the sale? She asked. What if we agree to walk away quietly? No one has to know what happened here. We could sign a private settlement. You keep the company money, I get a fair share of the marital assets, and we move on. I pretended to consider it, then shook my head. That would be interesting, I said, if I had not already thought about how many people in our industry would be very interested to know that Reggie Holt likes to steal client files and sleep with his partner's wife. Reggie's head snapped up. You would not do that, he said. You would not try to destroy my professional reputation. The State Board of Management Consultants is going to have questions, I replied. Unauthorized access to confidential client information is a serious ethics violation. It is not just about reputation. It is about your license. You cannot prove that, Reggie said, but his voice lacked conviction. I tapped my phone. Server logs do not lie, I said. Every time you access files you are not authorized to, every unauthorized download, every email you forwarded to your personal account, it is all documented. I have backup copies stored offsite. Even if you somehow erased everything on the office servers, the evidence would remain. Latoya looked from Reggie to me, her eyes wide. This was supposed to be simple, she said. You were supposed to sign the papers, Derek. We were supposed to take over the company and turn it around. You were going to get a generous salary and step back. That was the plan. Simple, I repeated. Like having an affair was simple. Like lying to your spouse for 3 months was simple. Let me explain something that actually is simple. Reggie, you are about to lose your professional license. Latoya, you are about to be a divorced single mother with no income beyond whatever job you can get. And I am about to start my 6-month consulting contract with Meridian at $200,000. The room went so quiet, I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Reggie swallowed hard. Latoya's mouth opened, then closed. Plus, I added, I kept the house. At that moment, Reggie's phone started buzzing again. This time, he did not answer it. He just stared at the screen as it vibrated in his hand. Probably the state licensing board, I said casually. I filed my formal complaint this morning, right after the sale closed. I figured they would want to know that one of their licensed consultants has been accessing confidential client data for personal gain. You filed a complaint? Reggie whispered. Complete with server logs, email records, and security camera footage from our office building, I said. It is amazing what you can see on those cameras when someone is copying files at 11 on a Sunday night. Carol looked at me, her eyes wide and wet. You would do all that? She asked. Even after everything your daughter has been through. My daughter, I said quietly, deserves a father who protects what he built, including the life he built for her. What kind of message would I be sending Naomi if I let 2 adults steal my company and walk away unchallenged? Leon stared at his shoes, shame written across his face. We did not know, he said. Latoya never told us about the affair. She said this was a business dispute, that you were reckless. Did you ever ask for my side? I asked him, even once. He hesitated, then shook his head. We trusted her judgment, he admitted. Bad choice, I said. The male attorney, Ellis, spoke up again, his tone more cautious now. Perhaps we should discuss a more reasonable settlement, he said. Something that avoids prolonged litigation and public hearings. There may be ways to structure this so that everyone walks away with minimal damage. There are ways, I said. Here's one. Reggie can voluntarily surrender his consulting license, agree in writing never to work in this industry again, and sign a detailed confession of what he did. In exchange, I will not actively pursue criminal charges. I will let the licensing board handle the professional consequences without pushing for more. That is career suicide, Reggie protested. You are asking me to walk away from everything I have worked for. No, I said. You committed career suicide when you decided that stealing client data and sleeping with your business partner's wife were acceptable business strategies. This is just the aftermath. Latoya resumed pacing, turning in tight circles. What about me? She asked. What am I supposed to do? I have not worked full-time since Naomi was born. I went back to part-time work at the nonprofit because you wanted me to be home with her. Get a job, I said. Learn a skill. Contribute something to the world besides drama and betrayal. You have a degree in art history. It has been 15 years, but you are still capable of working. Aisha almost smiled, though there was no humor in it. Maybe you could go back to that museum internship you used to talk about, she said to Latoya. The one you said you were too good for. Do not start with me, Aisha. Latoya snapped. You are barely keeping your own life together. I have a steady job at the hospital, Aisha replied calmly. I work as a nurse. I pay my bills. I am not perfect, but I am not standing in my sister's living room trying to steal her husband's company. Troy cleared his throat. Maybe we should all take a breath, he said. This is getting out of hand. I turned to Troy. You're the one who has been unemployed for 2 years and living in your parents' basement, right? I asked. And you were giving advice on how to handle consequences. His face reddened. That is not relevant, he said. It is relevant, I replied. Your sister invited you here because she thought she was about to become wealthy. Now that there is no cash out, You might want to consider updating your living arrangements. She is not going to be able to support you. That is enough, Carol said sharply. We did not come here for you to humiliate our entire family. No, I said. You came here to watch me sign away my company. LaToya wanted witnesses. She wanted you to see her victory. What you are seeing instead is the truth. The attorneys finished packing their briefcases. I think our role here is concluded for today, Attorney Rhodes said. Mrs. Cole, we will be in touch to discuss next steps regarding the divorce petition. You mean you will be in touch about how little there is to fight over now? I said. Most of the marital assets have either been secured for Naomi or moved into structures that predate this divorce. The court will see that. LaToya's shoulders sagged. You cannot keep Naomi from me, she said. No matter what you say about me, I am still her mother. I will not keep her from you, I said. But I will fight to make sure she lives in a stable household. One adult in this marriage has to prioritize that. The conversation ended not with a dramatic slam of a door, but with a slow unraveling. LaToya's parents left first, murmuring awkward goodbyes. Troy followed, avoiding my eyes. Aisha lingered in the doorway, her gaze searching mine as if trying to decide whether to say something. Reggie stood near the dining table, staring at the documents that no longer meant anything. The attorneys walked out with their useless paperwork, already thinking about their next case. When the house finally emptied of everyone but LaToya and me, the silence felt heavy. Naomi's door remained closed upstairs, but I knew she was awake, listening. You think you have won, LaToya said quietly. You think this makes you some kind of hero. I do not think of it as winning, I said. I think of it as surviving. There is a difference. She took a step closer, her eyes hard. You ruined my life, she said. You ruined Reggie's life. You ruined everything. You had the power to choose differently, I replied. You could have asked for a divorce. We could have divided assets fairly. You could have walked away with half of everything. Instead, you chose to lie, cheat, and steal. This is not about what I did to you. It is about what you did to yourself. That was the last meaningful conversation we had in that house, as husband and wife. 6 months later, I sat in my new home office, a bright room at the back of a different house on the opposite side of Charlotte. The walls were painted a calming gray, the shelves lined with neatly arranged binders from Meridian Industries, family photos, and Naomi's artwork. I had completed my 6-month consulting contract with Meridian, and they had offered me a permanent role with equity options. The work was challenging and well-paid. More importantly, it did not follow me home in the same way running my own company had. Naomi was upstairs in her room, working on a science project about habitats. Every now and then I could hear her moving around, humming to herself. Our new routine was stable, predictable, peaceful. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw a familiar car in my driveway, a dark blue sedan I recognized from 6 months earlier. Aisha stood on my porch, shifting from one foot to the other, holding a small tote bag. She looked nervous. I opened the door. Aisha, I said, this is a surprise. Come in. I hope I am not intruding, she said. I wanted to talk to you about something, and I did not think it was a conversation for the phone. It is fine, I said. Come in. Do you want some coffee? Coffee would be good, she said, stepping inside and glancing around. The place looks nice. We sat at the kitchen table while the coffee brewed. There were changes that marked this home as distinctly mine. New furniture, framed photos of Naomi and me at the park, at the aquarium, at a Charlotte Hornets game. No pictures of LaToya, no wedding photos, no reminders of the life that had ended. How's Naomi? Aisha asked, nodding toward the staircase. Better than I expected, I said. She is in counseling, which has helped a lot. She likes the quiet. She told me the other night that she does not miss the arguments. Aisha nodded slowly. Children notice more than we think, she said. I remember what it was like when my parents used to fight. I still hear some of those words in my head. I poured coffee into 2 mugs and set one in front of her. I heard about Reggie's hearing, I said. From Samuel. He said the licensing board made a decision. Aisha stared into her coffee for a moment. They did, she said. They revoked his license permanently. He is barred from working as a management consultant anywhere in the state. The district attorney decided to pursue the corporate espionage charges too. He took a plea deal, 2 years of probation, restitution to the clients whose information he misused, and mandatory ethics training he will never be able to apply. I took a sip of my coffee, not savoring it, not gloating, just acknowledging a consequence that had been inevitable once Reggie made his choices. "What about your family?" I asked. "How are they?" Aisha sighed. "My parents cut off contact with Latoya 3 months ago," she said, after they found out the full extent of what she had planned and how many times she lied to them about you. They were disgusted. My mother cried for days. My father has not been the same. "And you?" I asked. "I tried to help her at first," Aisha said. "I let her stay with me when she moved out of your house. I helped her look for jobs, helped her update her resume, drove her to interviews. But she kept blaming everyone else. She said you ruined her life. She said our parents were abandoning her. She even said I betrayed her by not taking her side in court. It got to be too much." "Where is she now?" I asked. "She is working part-time at a retail store over near the mall," Aisha said. "She is living in a studio apartment across town. She calls my parents, sometimes asking for money. They sent her some at first, but they stopped. She keeps saying she just needs one big break. I think she still believes something will fall into her lap." I nodded. None of it surprised me. "What about Troy?" I asked. "Is he still at your parents' place?" For the first time, Aisha smiled faintly. "Actually, no," she said. Seeing how badly Latoya's choices blew up her life scared him. "He finally got serious. He is working construction now, saving money to get his own apartment. It is the first time in years I have seen him stick with something for more than a few weeks." "Good for him," I said. "Maybe some good came out of all this after all." We sat in silence for a moment, sipping coffee. Naomi's footsteps moved above us, then stopped. I could picture her lying on the floor, drawing or reading. "I need to ask you something," Aisha said after a moment. She folded her hands on the table, knuckles white. "The money from the sale. I know you put $2 million aside for Naomi's college fund. What about the rest?" "Most of it is invested," I said. "Samuel helped me set up a conservative portfolio. Bonds, index funds, some real estate. Nothing flashy. The house is paid off. I have no debt. Naomi will never have to worry about tuition or housing. She will have options." "Latoya says you ruined her life," Aisha said quietly. "She says you are hoarding money that should have been hers too." "Latoya feels entitled to the benefits of a marriage she destroyed," I replied. "If she had come to me 6 months ago and said, 'I am unhappy, I want a divorce,' she likely would have received half of everything under community property law. But she did not do that. She chose a different path." Aisha nodded. "That is what I tell her when she calls me," she said. "I tell her that she ruined her own life. That actions have consequences. She does not like hearing it." "I imagine not," I said. Aisha looked around the kitchen again, taking in the simple, orderly space. "You know," she said, "you could have made this so much uglier. You could have dragged Naomi through a custody battle. You could have gone on social media and told everyone what Latoya did. You could have tried to destroy her publicly. Naomi did not choose her mother," I said. "She should not have to suffer for her mother's choices. I pushed for full custody because I wanted stability for her. Latoya eventually agreed to supervised visitation twice a month in exchange for avoiding charges as an accomplice. That is the arrangement. It is not about punishment. It is about keeping Naomi safe." Aisha nodded slowly. "For what it is worth," she said, "I think you handled this as well as anyone could have. My sister and Reggie thought they were playing chess. You were playing an entirely different game." I shrugged. "I did not go looking for this," I said. "I just refused to lose everything because 2 people thought they were smarter than everyone else." Aisha finished her coffee and stood up. "I should go," she said. "I just wanted you to know that not everyone in our family believed Latoya's version of events. And I wanted to thank you for taking care of Naomi the way you do. Naomi is the only thing that matters now," I said. "Everything I am doing is for her." Aisha hesitated at the door. "Do you ever miss her?" she asked softly. "Latoya, I mean, before all of this." I considered the question. There had been a time when Latoya and I laughed easily together, when late nights meant shared dreams rather than hidden messages. Those memories still existed, but they felt like they belonged to different people. "I miss the person I thought she was," I said, "but that person never really existed." Aisha nodded, blinked back a sudden sheen of tears, and left. A few minutes after the door closed, Naomi came down the stairs, her notebook in one hand and a colored pencil in the other. "Who was that, Dad?" she asked. "Your Aunt Aisha," I said. She wanted to see how we were doing. Are we doing good? Naomi asked. I looked around at our comfortable home, thought about the trust fund in her name, the steady job I had, the quiet we enjoyed, and the absence of constant tension. Yeah, baby, I said. We are doing very well. Naomi smiled. I'm glad it is just this most of the time, she said. It is quieter. I like when it is just peaceful. I ruffled her hair. Me too, I said. Always me too. Later that evening, after Naomi was in bed and the house had settled into that particular nighttime stillness, I sat in my office, reviewing the final paperwork from the divorce settlement. Everything was official now. The house was solely in my name. The investment accounts were structured to protect Naomi's future. The trust fund documents were signed and notarized. Reggie had been sentenced to 2 years of probation in order to pay restitution to the clients whose information he had mishandled. His consulting license was gone. His career in that field was over. According to Samuel, he had moved back to his hometown, hoping to start over in some other line of work. Whether he would learn from his mistakes was no longer my concern. LaToya had signed away any claim to joint custody in exchange for the decision not to pursue charges against her as an accomplice. She had supervised visitation rights twice a month, contingent on maintaining stable housing and employment. Naomi's therapist and I had agreed to introduce those visits slowly, if at all, based on Naomi's comfort and readiness. My consulting contract with Meridian had transformed into a full-time position with a salary higher than anything I had paid myself as a business owner, plus equity that would vest over the next few years. The work was intense but contained. When I shut down my computer at the end of the day, I actually felt the day end. That was new. I closed the last folder and leaned back in my chair. Sometimes people talk about revenge like it is a single moment, a sharp, satisfying strike. But what I had learned was different. Sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is simply living well while the people who tried to destroy you face the natural consequences of their choices. I turned off the light in my office and headed upstairs. Naomi's bedroom door was half open. I stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. Her room was filled with evidence of the life she was building. Soccer trophies on a shelf, drawings taped to the wall, a science fair ribbon pinned above her desk. Tomorrow was Saturday. We had plans to visit the zoo in the morning, then maybe catch a movie in the afternoon if we had the energy. Simple pleasures. Honest time. No hidden agendas. Just me and my daughter, walking forward into a life that, for the first time in a long time, truly felt like ours. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.